Hello, everyone. I believe I'm live now. So I'm doing a couple of these broadcasts all day long. Uh, one right now, one later on, about 6:30 Central Time. All in celebration of the greatest gift of comics, me. No, it is my 10-year Bunniversary as a full-time comic book writer. I was writing comics professionally longer than 10 years, but full-time was my only job. It's been 10 years today as a full-time comic book writer. It's something that's important to me because it's something I did not think would ever happen. It's something I still don't think will continue to happen. I feel like it's one of those things. I feel like the carpet's going to be pulled out from under me at any moment, and I think that's probably just the nature of working in comics. But if you've been following me on Twitter at all today, if you've been following me on my Discord server or on Facebook to some degree, I'm doing prizes. I'm doing a retrospective of my career. I'm talking a little bit about, steps I took along the way, and just trying to be, just give you as much information as I can about where I came from as a comic book creator. I will be giving some hints of things that I've got coming down the line later on. I'm giving out prizes all day long. If you, it's only on Twitter, and it's only to US followers, unfortunately, because the shipping's so crazy. But if you follow me on Twitter, I'm doing lots of prizes all day. But I just put up that the kind folks at Oni Press have offered up a full set of the 6-gun Gunslinger editions, and that's a nice set of books. So if you check it out on Twitter, you can see it. You can enter them with easy enter. You just retweet it and follow me on Twitter. I'm not putting it on anything. I'm only doing that one on Twitter just because it's easy to monitor it and get the random winner later on today. I think I said I was gonna do that about 7:30ish or so. I'll pick a winner of that set. And it's a nice set. The first 3 editions are the artist proof editions. Volumes 4, 5, and 6 are regular Gunslingers. So those all they're all signed by Brian Hurt, Bill Crabtree, and myself. They're in those nice slip cases. So they're really nice editions. So definitely check that out. And then lots of other cool prizes as well. So I don't have a huge agenda for this broadcast, but I was just going to open it up for questions or comments, anything you want to say. I'd love to hear if what your favorite books are. If you have questions about your favorite books, now is the time to post those questions. And the wonderful Cindy is monitoring things behind the scenes, and we'll be throwing comments and questions up as we go. So John Westhoff is asking, how can it be 10 years when I'm only 25 years old? It's tough, man. I broke in very early. Wasn't it? Didn't Jim Shooter, former editor-in-chief at Marvel, didn't he start writing comics when he was 15 or 16? He was very young. So I'm the same situation. I just broke in very early. To be completely honest, I didn't break into comics until I was already an old dude. So there you go. Dalibor, thank you, my friend. Thanks so much. Those of you who are watching, if you're not familiar with Dalibor, he is an amazing artist. He has done a number of projects with me. Probably the one most people are familiar with is Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. But he also did Witchhammer with me, and he's working on a project that's coming out from Aftershock in just a few months. I think it's available for pre-order right now, and it is Eden from Aftershock, and it is one of the most beautiful books you will ever see. Dalibor has absolutely just blown it out of the water. It is so pretty. It's a horror book. But it's also a romance. And when we talked about doing the book, it was we talked about making it pretty, even the horrific elements. And it is a super pretty book. So definitely check that out. Tell your comic shop you want to order it. Jules can't wait for Shadow Man. I can't wait for it either. Shadow Man it's a book that's, because of COVID, it kind of got delayed for a long time. It was announced about a year ago, just a little over a year ago, and was supposed to come out, but then it got delayed, but is now coming out in April. April 5th is the final order cutoff for Shadow Man #1. So please go to your local comic shop. Tell them you want the book. Tell them you want to subscribe to the whole series. I promise you won't regret it. It's going to be an awesome book. It's going to be unlike any other Valiant comic, unlike any other comic on the shelves at the time. John Davis Hunt is doing the art on it. It's gorgeous, and it's a balls to the wall horror story, but it's also a superhero story. So it's got a little bit of stuff for everybody. KE asks, any plans for a second volume of Passage in Black comic adaptations? Maybe. I mean, no plans right now. For those of you who aren't familiar, Passage in Black is a collection of comic stories that I put out through Kickstarter. I guess it's been a couple of years now. They were all adaptations by other creators of my prose short stories. It was a fun book. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing it. I would love to do another one. We'll see. I've got 4 Kickstarter projects planned right now, so it's going to be a little bit, because actually I've got 5 if you count the stuff I'm planning on doing later next year. So at earliest it would be a while, but I would love to do more Passage in Black. I'd love to do that as sort of almost like a regular event, not necessarily adaptations of my own work, but just new short stories, almost like a creepy or eerie anthology. Eric Smith picked up The Empty Man yesterday, and that would make a great movie. Come on, Eric, are you messing with me right now? He is right. It would make a great movie. And there is a movie out right now, The Empty Man. You can rent it. It is streaming, and you can rent it or purchase it on all your favorite streaming platforms. I do think you should read the comics too. There are 3 volumes, and they're awesome. Mitch says, stopping by to say congrats. Thank you so much. I hope there's another 10 or more years. Some days it feels less likely than others, but I'm trying. I'm working on a number of different kinds of things. I'm trying to kind of diversify into some different types of projects, things like that. I will be talking a little more about those later on this evening or this afternoon. But yeah, thank you. Brent says, I really enjoyed Regression and Bone Parish. Two very different genres. How did those two titles come to creation? Well, Regression is based on my dad was a professional stage hypnotist for many years, and one of the things he did, not necessarily as part of his show, but he would do sort of in private sessions, is he would do past life regressions. He would take people back and he'd say, okay, think back 10 years ago. What were you doing 10 years ago at this moment? What were you doing 15 years ago? What were you doing 20 years ago? And they could recall in perfect detail the things they were doing in that time. And then he'd say, okay, now I'm going to take you back 20 years before you were born, 50 years before you were born, 100 years before you were born. And I saw some of the weirdest, most bizarre things you can imagine. These people speaking in languages they didn't know, and telling detailed how to bake bread in olden times in vivid detail. And it was just really interesting, and it stuck with me for a long time. And I had this idea that what if you did one of these past life regressions, and the person that you were in the past was possessed by a demon. And that's really where regression came from. Bone Parish, I'm not exactly sure where all that came from. It definitely, the setting of New Orleans came about because Cindy and I were visiting New Orleans when I was talking to my editor about the book, and it just seemed perfect for that story. The story was already in place, and actually, it's a story I had been working on years earlier, and it was going to be a much more of a superhero kind of book, almost. It was very actiony, very. It was about like assassins using the ashes of assassins of the past to give them powers and abilities. So it wasn't. It wasn't anything like what you got in Bone Parish that was published. Alexander, ever thought about doing a Harrow County illustrated novel? I love the comics, but I think this would be a nice compliment. I love an illustrated prose anthology too. I like that idea. I haven't thought about it so much. I mean, Harrow County did start as a prose project, and then I eventually transferred it over to comics. But I like that idea. It's not something I have necessarily considered yet, but I like that. I'd love to know, if that's something people would like to see. I'd love for them to more people to tell me, because it kind of sounds like a lot of work, but but okay, I still am into it. Is Oni developing any of your books into board games? No. Well, maybe down the line. I mean, we have definitely talked about it, and there are definitely some of my comics, not Oni books, that are in development as board games. But I wouldn't be surprised if we do something with Oni, developing something down the line. Yes, we've talked about it, and they obviously are big in the board games, and they're putting out some really cool stuff right now. So I could see it down the line. I think the first thing that'll come out board game wise is not an Oni book inspired project. I can't say much more about that one. Sorry. I want to. It's really cool. David says Harrow County was fantastic, both as a story and a setting. Is there anything coming that's related? Yes, there is. I asked a number of my publishers what I could talk about and what I can't, and I'm not allowed to talk about some of these things. But there is more Harrow County stuff on the horizon. I might get in trouble for saying that. Thanks for getting me in trouble. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it, buddy. And again, I appreciate this, and I really appreciate all of you, everyone who supported me over the years, everyone who picks up my books or talks about my books. It means a lot to me, and I wouldn't be in this for 10 years if not for the support of folks like you. Shane asks if there will be a continuation of Dark Arc, and I would love to give you a absolutely 100% yes, there will be more Dark Arc, but the truth is I don't know right now. I mean, there's obviously more story out there, and I'd love to do more, but I haven't. I don't have anything that I can tell you that there is definitely something in the works right now. Alex is asking if I've ever considered doing a Transformers book or a continuation of Disney's Gargoyles. I don't think anything is. It's not something I'm looking towards doing. I did do some Transformer stuff in IDW's Revolution series. It had the and in Wrath of Karza, the Transformers were a part of that story, and they kind of featured into some of the Micronaut stuff I did for IDW. But nothing in the works right now, nothing planned. I'm not saying I wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I loved both of those franchises. I just don't have any. There's no irons in the fire in that regard right now. And Shannon has Cindy Bunn with a heart, of course, because everybody loves Cindy Bunn. She's the best. If you like Cindy, which everybody does, make sure you check out. If you don't know, we do a podcast called The Bungalow. You can find links to it all over my social media and everything. Definitely, you should check that out. Raw Comics asks, my favorite death in a comic since you were so good with Deadpool. Man, that's a tough one. I mean, if we're talking comics, I've written so many deaths. I don't know if it's my favorite, but if we want to talk Deadpool, I did really like killing Spider-Man in issue 2 of Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. And I especially liked how much hate I got for that death. And it was so much fun that when Dalibor and I did Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe again, we dedicated the second issue to killing all the Spider-Men in the Marvel Universe. All the Spider characters, not just Spider-Men. Anyone associated with Spider-Man. But I don't know. Favorite, it's tough to say. If in Six Gun, there's some deaths that I think are pretty well done. There's a death in Harrow County that I think is like a punch to the gut. So those are my favorites probably. But it was fun to get all that hate mail about killing Spider-Man. What do you look for in an artist for your books? Anyone who is actually willing to put up with my nonsense. No, it's tough, and it depends on the project. And sometimes I don't have a say. So if I look towards books for the big two, for instance, Marvel or DC, I don't always have a say in who the artist is going to be. The editor may suggest an artist or say, hey, here are some people that we're looking at for this book. Or they may just say, this is your artist, because one of their jobs is to cast the book. It's called casting. They cast the writer, the artist, the colorist, the letterer, and that's the team on the book. I don't necessarily have the say on that. Not always. Sometimes, not always. With creator-owned books, it's a little different. I often have a lot more of a say in that. And to me, the most important thing is it's someone who's excited about the project. I mean, obviously talent and the ability to turn in books on time and things like that, that's all important. But also being very excited and engaged in the project's a big deal, because you're always going to get a better product in the end if everybody is on board. Mr. Macabre, my friend Mr. Macabre, I've written many, many stories, but is there one character you would like to write that you haven't yet? Hellblazer is a big one that I feel like I'm specifically positioned to write a great Hellblazer story. Solomon Kane, Dr. Druid, Swamp Thing. I mean, I've written some Swamp Thing, but you're talking about a big run. Swamp Thing, Man Thing, any of the horror characters at the big two would be fun to write for sure. And then there's some others that maybe one day. James asks if there will ever be a follow-up to Metro. I sure hope so. Brian Quinn, and by the way, happy birthday to Brian Quinn today. Brian Quinn and I have definitely talked about it. There is an outline in place. We're ready to go. It's just about getting it all together. Driving Creator says, is any plans to be kicking around with Blackie? We're such a great team. He's talking about, we're talking about Blackie Shepherd, a talented artist I've worked with on numerous projects in the past. And he's a great guy. And yes, I mean, we just, the crowdfunding for Reanimator, The Eternal Lie that I did with him is just wrapped up, I guess. But yes, Blackie and I are currently talking about other types of projects, so keep an eye out. Some things comics, some things not comics. We got some really interesting stuff cooking up, and again, I'll probably mention some of that later. What type of horror genre scares you most, Derek? I don't know. I don't know what I think ghosts, ghost stuff is pretty scary to me, especially ghosts in movies. Movie ghosts are awful, and if I think about movies like Session 9 is one of the scariest ghost stories ever, and then it's also scary for the stuff that has nothing to do with ghosts. That's a terrifying movie, and I remember having to turn it off. I was watching it at night, and I had to turn it off and finish watching it the next day. So like ghosts, spirits, demonic forces possessing people, that stuff's terrifying. What subgenre is that? Spooky horror. Dragon Ranger asks, is there any plan for another Rogue Planet series? There's no plan for it. It would be cool to do something more. I have another story in mind if we did another Rogue Planet. I mean, I know what I would do with it, but there's no plans for it right now. Maybe one day, though. It would be cool. Miss Macabre thought Bone Parish was the secret of how Keith Richards became immortal, and maybe it is. I can't tell you the true magic of these comics, the true secrets behind the words and pretty pictures. But yeah, hold on. What horror character would you most want to write one-off or a series on? So Jesse, I have long wanted to write a Phantasm series. I mean, I've tried to make that happen. I really would love to do a Phantasm comic book series, and I don't think it's in the cards, but that's the one. If I was thinking of any like horror story I would love to do something with, Phantasm 1000% is my jam. I would absolutely love to. Which leads to, what's your favorite Phantasm movie? And it's Phantasm 2. That's my favorite of the series, although I like the whole series. But a comic would be in the vein of Phantasm 2, I think. Trevor would like to see more Cold Spots. Any plans on the future of that title? And loving Rogue Planet. So Mark Torres and I, Mark was the artist on Cold Spots. We're actually doing a series together right now called Phantom on the Scan, coming out from Aftershock, and it's already been solicited. So the first issue you can pre-order from your comic shop is very much in the vein of Cold Spots, very similar mood, but it is about a group of psychics who are discovering that psychics all over the world are starting to die violently. Their powers killing them, and these small group of psychics bands together to try to figure out why that's happening and how do they stop it. But it's very, very similar to Cold Spots in terms of the mood and the look of it because of Mark's art. And we've talked a lot about maybe doing another Cold Spot series. Again, it leaves the end of that story actually absolutely leaves it open for more stories. So I like that Eric's just messing with me now, asking these questions that he knows the answer to already. Have I ever been in a gross out contest? I absolutely have. I'm trying to leave that part of my life behind, Eric. Why won't you let me leave it behind? What Eric's referring to, of course, is the World Horror Convention. It's an annual event for horror writers. They used to put on this event called the Gross Out Story, where several dozen writers would come up and read the most horrific short story they could read, and you'd get thumbs up and thumbs down, and you'd win prizes and accolades for winning the Gross Out contest. And I have entered. Every time I've entered, I've taken first place because I apparently am a sick man, as my friend Jimmy Z. Johnston will say. You're only supposed to win 3 times. I won the 3 times I entered officially, and then they stopped doing the Gross Out contest. So there was like underground versions of the Gross Out contest, and I've won those a couple of times as well. So yeah, but I've retired from the Gross Out game. It's not a moment. I mean, I'm proud of it, but I'm not that proud of it. I shouldn't be proud of it. Who would play Democritus Brand in the live action adaptation? Man, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that too much. Maybe Robert Downey Jr. would be a good Democritus Brand. He might be a fun Democritus Brand, right? Or Ewan McGregor. I could see that too. That'd be fun. Any of them. I'll take any of them. If it can't be me playing the character, then and I say Democrat. This is interesting because there's contention between Jimmy Z, my co-writer on Democritus Brand, and myself. He says Democritus, and I say Democritus. And we even went online to do one of those pronunciation guides, and it was pronounced. There was 2 of them, and one pronounced it Democritus and one pronounced it Democritus. So we have decided it could be pronounced either way without problems. Julie Sellers Wood asks, have you ever thought about writing a story involving paranormal history in Missouri? To some degree, all of my stuff is about those kind of stories. I could absolutely see myself writing one about some of the paranormal history in Missouri. If you read Centralia, the collection of short stories I recently did, my story in that is set in Centralia, Missouri. And while it's not necessarily a paranormal event in that town's history, it's an awful event in that town's history that kind of sets the paranormal events of that short story into motion. I like the picture of Piecemeal behind you, though, in your little profile picture. I don't know if you did that for this, but thank you. Look at people agreeing with Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy. Jules, don't agree with Jimmy on anything. He doesn't deserve it. Alexander, could you give some tips on writing, specifically on how to write horror well? That's a big topic. We could talk about it for hours and hours. And maybe I've been thinking about maybe setting up some very focused videos like this to talk about that kind of stuff. But if I were going to give, my first big piece of writing is writing advice on writing horror is you really got to hook the reader on an emotional level. You need all the elements of any good story. Great setting, great plot, great characters, but you really need to hook the reader on an emotional level. You need to make them care about those characters. And you need to dig deep most of the time to do that. You got to dig deep into whatever is messing you up when dealing, you've got to dig deep into your own history, your own past, your own relationships, and really see how those things shaped you and how those things can shape your characters and pour that into it. Because if you can hook a reader on an emotional level, they'll be afraid for the characters, so they'll be they'll be worried if they're going to make it through, and uh, and also if you hook them on an emotional level, they'll forgive a lot of other stuff in a story. Alpha Spears, this is my cousin. Hello, Alphas. Any chance of a horror set in historical period, like Louis, the court of Louis XIV? That's a good idea for a setting. I mean, a lot of my horror stories do take place in historical periods. I do like that that fusion of history and some genre element. That's an interesting idea for a setting, Alphas. I really like that one. Who knows? Maybe that one day that will come to pass. I'm always looking for new historical settings, though, for sure. Daniel is very excited for the upcoming middle reader book and have enjoyed many of your books for the family. Bite-sized has been fun. Any plans on more books for younger readers? So yes. So the book we're talking about is The Ghoul Next Door, which is coming out from HarperCollins in July. It is a big, thick graphic novel with art by Kat Ferris, and it's going to be gorgeous. It's a beautiful book. So I would love to do more of this middle reader horror fiction. There is a sequel to The Ghoul Next Door in the works. It's written and is being drawn right now, so there's at least another one of those. But I would absolutely love to do another, to do much more middle reader stuff. It's a fun genre to write in, especially with it's a fun age group to write for, especially with the horror genre. So I sure hope so. Fingers crossed. If The Ghoul Next Door does well, then absolutely. Keith says, congratulations. If money were not an issue, would you buy DC Comics and bring back the classic DC horror characters lineup and title? Also, would you consider appearing on my YouTube show? So if money were no issue, I'd absolutely buy DC Comics and then bring all the stuff I love, because most of the stuff I really, really love from DC is probably the stuff they think doesn't sell as well as it could. But yeah, absolutely. And a horror line would be the classic characters kind of revisioned, a revision of those characters for today would be awesome. And as far as appearing on your YouTube show, we'll talk soon. You know how to reach me, Keith. Reach out. So let's see. Pip Harris says, congratulations on making it 10 years full time. It's been a pleasure selling your books in your shop for the last 5 years. So Pip, what's the name of your shop so that we can give you a shout out too? Thank you for selling the books, but make sure you tell us what your shop is and where it is. I always like to hear that stuff. And yeah, I definitely love to hear where the shops are. And I know we have some other shop owners out there. But yeah, give me a shout out where the shop is so that I can post it out there for everybody. Eric. All right, Eric. Fair enough. So Eric says he didn't know there was a gross out contest until Jeff Strand told you yesterday. And I'm assuming when Jeff Strand told you, his tears were streaming down his face. And he was lamenting how he could never defeat me in the gross out contest, because that's what it would have looked like, I'm sure. And Jeff and I actually did a joint gross out, a joint gross out contest story. One of the years I was actually a judge and of the gross out contest that year, and even though Jeff knew he was going to, he was not going to be able to win because I jumped up and we did a co-story. He took the hit and didn't win because I joined in and we read a story together. And it's the only gross out story that I don't have like a transcript of, because we basically sat in the hotel room before the contest and wrote it all down together. Oh, so Julie, you were a comic shop owner in Springfield. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Again, another comic shop owner. So thank you, and thanks for supporting the book, and thanks for having it on the shelf. That's awesome. A few comics more, room 237 in Portsmouth. Well, again, thank you for carrying the books. I really appreciate the support. It really does mean the world. And I know that running a comic shop is no easy business. None at all. John Blunt asks, how did the Centralia book come together? Who chose the other authors? So Centralia came together. It was sort of the brainchild of Heath Amadio, who wrote one of the stories. He's my partner in Hustle and Heart production, and it was his idea to do this story. It was his dream to have this sort of building universe where we were connecting different sort of supernatural investigators. And then we had a lot of different writers who were involved in it. Some Heath brought in, some I brought in, and some had to move on to other projects or just couldn't do the story for various reasons. But it was a joint effort. I mean, of people we were both fans of. I know I brought Brian Quinn in because I knew he wanted to write some stories, and he had some cool ideas, and his character in that book is still my favorite of that book. But yeah, it was a joint effort bringing in different writers we were both fans of. Derek is ready for me to have a run on Hellblazer. And he knows that when it happens, it will be great. And it's true. I too am ready for that to happen. I don't know that it's in the cards for me, but it would be cool. I mean, I would enjoy the heck out of a run on Hellblazer. I have some neat ideas, and it's one of those that I've gotten close, but it never managed to come together. Michael, love to see your take on DC Comics' updated version of House of Mystery. That'd be really cool. It's interesting because if you could see over here on my little reading table, I'm reading the Vertigo series of House of Mystery that came out a few years ago, and it's so good. I mean, the plan is I'm going to get them bound up in the hardcover, but I've been reading them, and it's awesome. And yeah, it would be neat. I'm not sure what I'd do with that. I mean, I think the way they handled it in the Vertigo series was so smart, because it did have the stories, but then it had this bigger story sort of surrounding it, and I really like that. But I have such fond memories of all those old anthology horror comics, so I'd absolutely love to do something like that. We're steady selling those Bunn books at Maverick Cards and Comics in Kettering, Ohio. And you help with their social media. Thank you so much, Derek. Thanks to Mavericks Cards and Comics in Kettering. Again, it means a lot to me that these stores are carrying the books. And those of you watching, tell your shops. I mean, it does help these shop owners if they know. If you pre-order a book, they know what you want. They know it's a guaranteed sell pretty much. So yeah, definitely pre-order your books. Zach Zeddy asked if I've ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. Thanks, Mr. Nicholson. Thanks so much. I liked I like the throwbacks to the old movies. Of course, I've danced with the devil in the pale moonlight, and I'm sure you always ask that of all your prey. What a nerd! Me, I'm a nerd. Sean asked if there's any more chance of making more issues of Wolf Moon with Jeremy Hahn. I don't know, maybe. Jeremy and I have been definitely talking a lot about Wolf Moon lately, so there's always potential for more Wolf Moon stuff. Nothing, uh, nothing solid, nothing yet. Uh, Justin says pre-order, especially nowadays when comics skyrocket in price on release. That's true. It doesn't just benefit the comic shop owner, but if you want to make sure you get these books, pre-ordering is a great way to make sure that nothing happens, that you're not paying a fortune for an issue that you're looking for. Nathan, congrats on 10 years. I guess it makes it 10 and some change that I was lucky enough to get to play in a Villains and Vigilantes and Cthulhu campaign for a short stint before I had to move away for school. Picked up the damn once it hit stores, and it blew me away. I've loaned them out more than a few times, and I'm lucky they've come back each time. Have you considered writing any mods for various pen and paper role-playing games? So yes, Nathan, that Villains and Vigilantes campaign, fond memories, long time ago. And it's interesting, you mentioned Villains and Vigilantes and Cthulhu campaign, because there's some cool stuff in the works. I've gotten the works on the comics front that may have even been inspired by those old days. As far as role-playing games, absolutely. I have some big plans on the role-playing game front. Some stuff I'm probably going to talk about a little later today on various social media channels. No, Nathan, I know it was my Villains, Vigilantes, and Cthulhu campaign. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. That was a campaign I ran. Yes, I would definitely like to do some more more role-playing game stuff. I have some stuff in mind, and yes, that Villains and Vigilantes and Cthulhu, it's something I kind of have gone back to over the years. Nathan played one recently, well, relatively recently. It's been years now, but when I was a kid, I ran one, and I have something I'm gonna announce later on today, or talk more about. I've kind of announced it, but talk more about later today. That definitely has some connective tissue to those old days too. Can you talk more about the Brian Hertz sketch you shared on Patreon a few days? What are y'all cooking up now? Oh, okay. So yeah, on Patreon a few days ago, I shared, and hello, Scott. I shared an image of sort of a medieval hunter looking dude for a project that Brian Hurt and I are working on together. I have not asked Brian how much I can share about it right now. That's my only hesitation, but I can say that it is a comic project, but it's also got some role-playing game component to it. So there's some really neat stuff coming up very soon in that respect. And Scott, you get a prize, my friend. Scott, you get, look at this, a copy of Piecemeal and Dark Ark After the Flood. I'll sign them and send them to you. Send me your address. I'm sure you know how to reach me. You can get me through Twitter or through my website. You can send an email there. And yeah, these are coming your way shortly. So congrats, Scott. Prize coming your way. And thanks for bringing that up. I will ask Brian how much I can share about that, and I'll probably share some of that later today too. A little more detail. Brian has sent me, just so you know, on that respect, dozens and dozens and dozens of similar sketches, and he said I could share them. I just don't know how much I can share about the project. But it is the next big thing that Brian and I are doing together, and it's completely different from all the stuff we've done in the past. Different on almost every front. All right, I have time for a few more questions. What other known but obscure, like Micronaut stuff would you like to take a stab at? Ooh, Scare Tactics, which was a DC comic about a band of monsters that came out in the 90s. There was like a vampire and a werewolf on bass, and a vampire lead singer, and a like a human golem on drums. I would love to do a Scare Tactics story. It was a very short-lived series from DC. I would also love to do a Black Wolf story, which is a very short-lived Marvel series that I really loved a lot. I think it only went 11 issues, around similar time to Clandestine, which is another amazing Marvel series that only ran for a short while. So any of those would be great. Jasper says, have you ever thought of pitching an animated all-ages horror series? We need one. Yes, Jasper. I have. Not only have I thought about it, there's some in the works right now. Definitely can't tell you more about that, but I can tell you there is some all-ages horror animated projects in the works right now. Not associated with any of my other properties or books, but definitely something coming out. Kenneth, you are. Where are we at with a Punk Mambo Shadow Man crossover? You're just anxious, just so anxious. Just take a deep breath. It'll happen. Shadow Man hasn't even come out yet. In all seriousness, I'd love to do Punk Mambo Shadow Man, and assuming Shadow Man is successful and goes on, I think that it will definitely happen. So I've made it very clear that my goal with the Shadow Man book and Punk Mambo is to really stake a claim in the supernatural corner of the Valiant universe. And I hope we can get there, man. And hey, you know what? Kenneth, I'm going to give you a prize too, because I'm getting ready to, we're running down to the end here, but you get a prize as well. Kenneth, Harrow County Omnibus, Volume 1, 16 issues of Harrow County. It is on its way to you. I just need you to, on Twitter or shoot me through my website, you can shoot me an email and with your address, and I'll get this out to you. Signed copy of Harrow County Omnibus, Volume 1. Look at that. Prizes aplenty. And just so you know, if you're following me on Twitter and Facebook, there are a lot more prizes coming the way of, all across the board. We have trade paperbacks, variant covers coming out. Some will be signed because they're coming from me, and some the publishers are sending out, so they won't be signed, but they'll still be cool. They're the cool raw editions. You can sell them for a lot more without my crappy signature on them. So definitely keep an eye out for all that today. Tatiana says, has your writing routine changed at all over the years? Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot. I work every day of the week, and most of those days I put in a full 8 hours at least. But my writing routine has changed a little bit, but I always stick with it. The reason I'm saying yes now is it seems like lately in the last couple of years, it's been I'm not as productive, anywhere near as productive as I used to be. I've started tracking the number of pages I produce in a week, and the number's going way down, where it used to be I could produce, 20 pages of script a day and not even blink. It's gone. it's gone way down over recent years. So in that way, my routine has changed. I still come down, I sit in front of the computer, but I'm not producing as many words right now, unfortunately. So we're going to take maybe 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up because and there it is. John Blunt, can you talk a little bit about the differences between the Empty Man comic and the movie? How involved were you in the adaptation? So there's definitely a big difference. If you've watched the movie and you've read the books, you know that the story is vastly different in the two of them. I kind of see the movie as sort of a different corner of the Empty Man universe. Like, this is stuff that's unfolding because the Empty Man's about this contagious insanity and the different sort of almost religious cults that are springing up because of it. And I can see the movie as almost being like one corner of the world that the Empty Man is set in. As far as how involved I was not. It was one of the first things I ever sold as a movie or a TV show. And I was not as involved. I was not that involved with it. I read the script when it came in and things like that, and they kept me involved in changes and everything. But I've been more involved in other adaptations of my other work, and going forward, I'm more involved in adaptations of my work. But I was not very hands-on on that project. And it's fine. I mean, it seems like folks are really enjoying the movie. I think people who enjoy the movie will also enjoy the comic and get very different experiences from those two things. And I'm happy to have my name on that picture for sure. Michael asks, what music do you listen to while you write? Most of the time, I forget to turn music on. I can almost tell you that I never listen to music with lyrics while I write because I find it too distracting. So I listen to a lot of soundtracks, a lot of musical scores, but 9.5 times out of 10, I just forget to turn music on, and I just sit down and start writing. I always intend to. I set up speakers and Spotify accounts and everything else so that I can listen to music while I work, and I just forget to do it. So not a lot, although I love movie soundtracks and scores and things like that. And I've been putting, I've got a big folder of movie soundtracks that I've been collecting over the years, and I haven't. I just forget to turn them on. All right, we're gonna do one last question. Where's that question coming from? Cindy, hit us. No question. So there we go. I know that there's a lot of comments have gone through, and Cindy's put up the questions we can over the course of this video. I am going to be doing some Q&A on Twitter and things like that here, and then I will be back. I'll be back doing another live broadcast at about I think 6:30 this evening. I'll do another live broadcast. It might not be quite as long as this one, but thank you all for joining me. Thank you again, all of you, so much for the support over the years. I'm really hoping we get another 10 years, and we'll see if it happens. And yeah, hit me on Twitter. I'll answer some questions there too. Here in a little bit, I'll open it up for questions there, or just put the question out there, and I'm going to do my best to answer as many questions as I can over the next, however many hours. But other than that, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for joining me here for a little while.